Hey everyone, this is Ben Dunn, founder of Anarchic Press in 1985, coming to our 40th anniversary. I'm also the creator of Ninja High School, which is approaching issue 200, and Warrior Nun, which has 2 seasons on Netflix, and Marvel Mangaverse back in 2000 when Marvel when manga was just starting out. And that's what I want to talk to you today about is the Marvel Mangaverse and how not to giving up can pay off for you. Well, before I found manga, I was a big avid comic book reader. I loved also comic strip reader. I used to read the comic strips in the newspaper when we had it delivered to our house. That was the first thing I would go to is when the newspaper arrived at the house, would pull out the comic strip and start reading them. My favorite was Peanuts at the time, but I also liked all the other comic strips. I remember reading Beetle Bailey and Dagwood, and even Bringing Up Father was still a thing back in the day. But I first discovered Marvel Comics when a friend of mine recommended me a X-Men 107. Back then I was reading Richie Rich. Wasn't big into Archie. Just never really, I never really gravitated toward Archie. I don't know why. It just never seemed to be. It seemed to be kind of mundane compared to, things like Richie Rich and all the other stuff. I was familiar with Batman and Superman and all, but I never read the comics. You know, but when he loaned me his copy of X-Men 107, I fell in love with it. I thought it was, oh, this is fantastic. Started reading X-Men since then, and I started reading Marvel comics. I started collecting comics. I started doing all sorts of stuff. I was becoming a collector, and we bought and traded and so on. And so I was determined to one day work for Marvel Comics, and I spent hours and hours and days and years trying to perfect my drawing skills so that I would someday be able to work for Marvel. I bought the Marvel tryout book. I'm not sure if you remember, but Marvel did a thing called the Marvel tryout book, which was a way for you to get Bristol board, Marvel approved Bristol board, and they sent you a sample script, and you were supposed to draw, what you could based on the sample script, and then you send it in, and apparently they would evaluate it and see if they had new talent. They don't do that anymore, though. I'm not sure whether or not it was a successful project or not, but I'm pretty sure they were looking for new talent, and that was a way to make money and try to discover new talent. I mean, that's good. Kudos to you, Marvel. That was brilliant, brilliant. And I don't know if they do that anymore. I'm not even sure what Marvel's process of getting new talent. My understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they don't actually look for new talent anymore because there's so much available out there that they can just scour the internet and hire somebody right on the spot. I mean, but you have to remember back in my day, you had to physically go to a convention or send in your submission by mail. And then hopefully you got a reply. And Marvel was really good at that. I sent in several submissions to Marvel, and every time I got rejected. I was like, but they were very nice. I don't know if it was a form letter rejection, but they would just basically say, oh, well, we got your submission. We didn't think he was up to snuff, but keep at it. At least they were trying to be encouraging, and they were something that I had to apply Marvel. I never applied to DC because I felt that DC was kind of stale at the time, and I just never really liked the characters all that much. I mean, the only DC comic I ever bought was the Neil Adams issues of Batman. I thought that is awesome, And Neil Adams, man, he was born to draw Batman. That was the guy. I mean, I collected his other stuff too, but it never seemed to resonate as much. I mean, he did some Marvel books. He did X-Men. He did Avengers. But, Marvel, Neil Adams just didn't capture that magic that he had with Batman. And Neil Adams is an incredible artist. I really admire. He's one of my favorite artists. I really grew up with him and greatly admired his work. But anyway, eventually, I started Anarch Press, 1985. I gave up on submitting to Marvel. I figured it was not worth it anymore. I did attempt one more time, and I got very close to being accepted by Marvel because they had some sort of tryout contest or something like that, which I entered, and apparently I got second place. I'm not sure. It's in Marvel Age number something. I don't remember what issue it is, but I lost out to Kerry Gamble apparently. But you know what? If I were to lose out to Kerry Gamble, that's not a bad person to lose out to. Because he's an amazing and tremendous artist. But just to show you that I started Anarch Press because I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it Marvel or DC. And by that time, I had become shifted over to manga. And manga was not well known at the time. You're talking about early 1980s. And nobody knew what manga was. I mean, apparently Richard and Wendy Pini were greatly influenced by manga. And it showed a lot in their ElfQuest. So I guess that would technically make ElfQuest the first American manga. I guess, if you wanted to put a label on it. But anyway, manga was not well known and certainly wasn't that prevalent in American comics. So that was the shift I decided to make and focus on. So 1985 goes, 1995 goes, and then around 1999, I started getting, in the early to mid 90s, I started getting manga versions of superheroes from my pen pal in Japan, and he was a big fan of American comics. He was part of what is known as a circle, which is a group of Japanese fans who spend time making fanzines, which are called like doujinshis in Japan. And his focus was American comics. And he would send me his doujinshis, and they were filled with manga stylized versions of American superheroes. I had never seen anything like that before. It was so amazing. It was so interesting. So much so that Anarch Press did a comic called Justice, which collected a lot of the fanzine material, translated, and it became the basis for me to start doing something, like the Mangaverse. So around 1999, I sent a proposal in to Marvel Comics. I did a big, huge. I drew up a whole bunch of proposed covers and ideas, and I planned out I laid out a plan for the issues. My original plan was to release each Mangaverse version of a Marvel character in order of the actual Marvel Universe release. My premise was, what if the Marvel Universe was created in Japan? That was my conceit. So the first issue would be Fantastic Four, next issue would be the Hulk, third issue would be the Spider-Man, then Iron Man, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then X-Men or whatever. And I sent it in by FedEx, because at the time we didn't really send things by, internet, because memory constraints, things like that. And people just hadn't accepted, things on the internet. Internet was still sort of in its early infancy, so it wasn't really used. So I sent in a proposal by FedEx, and I really, honestly, didn't expect them to reply. Honestly, I really didn't. But Joe Quesada, who was the editor at the time, sent me a reply. And he said he wanted to do it. And I was flabbergasted, but I was shocked. I actually thought, oh, this must be a dream. This can't be real. But lo and behold, it was real. And they proposed it as a 5th-week event. Now, for those who don't know, back in my day, a 5th-week event was when a month had 5 weeks instead of the normal 4. And Marvel, being Marvel, wanted to make sure that they had something out every week. But because they had monthly titles that really just appeared monthly, they usually reserve the 5th week event for things that were experimental, things that were a test case, so to speak. So they reserved a 5th week event for Marvel Mangaverse. And lo and behold, they started going about doing. Now, my original plan is I was going to do it all. I was going to do the writing, I was going to do the drawing, I was going to do everything. But since it was a 5th week event, there was just no way I was going to do the number of issues they were required to fill in that 5th week. So basically, I was to do the beginning and the end, So and that was the deal. I did the bookends basically, but they went ahead and farmed out the rest of the ideas to various creators, I guess, whom they thought could draw in a manga style, which was kind of interesting, and they went ahead and said, hey, do manga versions of these characters. And I don't know what the process was in choosing the particular creators. I know that there was a lot of different, variations of what I originally had thought, but they turned out to be pretty interesting overall. And it was quite a success when it first came out. A lot of people really liked it, but I think it suffered. Then they gave me a 6-issue miniseries, which I did. Put together. I had a help with a writer, who put together the miniseries. But unfortunately, it didn't sustain sales. It was canceled after the 6th issue with sales of about 40 to 50,000 copies. And just to show you how back then, what it would take to cancel a book, most publishers would kill for a print run or a sales of 40 to 50,000 copies nowadays. But back then that was the level in which where a book got canceled. But I'm glad to see that a lot of people seem to like the Mangaverse. They still remember it. It was one of those really strange birds that, didn't appeal to traditional superhero crowds, and didn't quite appeal to the true manga crowd. It was sort of like a hybrid that, seemed to find a new audience altogether who liked that kind of particular style. But just goes to show you that even after years of trying to get into Marvel, sometimes it can take one little thing to make your dream come true. And that's why you should not give up ever on your goals and your dreams. You just never know when it will happen. It's like there's that famous cartoon where they show somebody digging into the ground in a deep hole, giving up just as there's a huge, vast treasure just mere feet away. And that's one of those things that you have to anticipate in life, is that you should never, ever give up on your dream of what you want to accomplish. It can be difficult, yeah. It can be discouraging. There's going to be obstacles in your way. The important thing is it's a true test of your character to see how much you believe in what you want to do and how you can overcome those obstacles. I always say that you never keep a good idea locked up in your head. You should always get it out there, because it doesn't do you any good locked up in your head. You need to express it, share it, because you just don't know what that idea will become if you don't share it with the world. So I just want to give everyone little words of encouragement that if I can make it if my dream was to make the Marvel, then anybody can do it, So anyway, I want you to see if I want you to, if you like what you've heard, like and subscribe. Press the subscribe. I don't know. I'm just rambling now. Like and subscribe. And I also have a campaign going. Only have a few days left. It's called BIKINI SENTAI G Rangers, which is a great, fun little all ages comic that combines the tropes of Power Rangers and Sentai with beach blanket bingo. So it's awesome. So until next time, this has been Dunn signing off.